Hello and welcome to Zwiftaholics. I'm Adam, and we are having a quick look at Zwift Racing League Round 5 Cobbled Climbs around Richmond. And I'm joined by a very special guest tonight, race recon extraordinaire, Simon Bradley. How was your Zwift racing experience this week?
Yeah, fun, I guess, is a word I could use. I'm not sure my legs are saying fun this morning, but I'm feeling it in the legs, but not as bad as I was expecting, I guess, given the fact that we only really raced half the course, I would say. The second half of the course was fairly easy going. So I think I said to you in the chat, my heart rate was varying from 180 at the top of 23rd Street, but I was right back down to 135 as we were heading back round the other side. So, yeah, it's like the strangest interval session I've ever done.
Yeah, it was funny. I broadcast the APAC race, raced EMEA extremely poorly, had one of my just worst days on the bike. Thank goodness it's a team competition and my teammates stood up and did well. But in the APAC race, yeah, it was interesting watching the heart rates. A few were down around that 120, 130. They recovered really well, but some guys were just on the hammer. They were still 165 coming down, coming up towards Libby Hill, so just really didn't get down the entire time. So interesting mix of performances for sure. Really tough course, and so we've got a few, I guess, little highlights, top five, the takeaways from the week, and hopefully some people will take some things away from this one and apply it to future races on this course or the last few weeks of racing in Swift Racing League. So number one for me, I think, was just the Zwift glitches, which just seem to plague this week. It kind of, it never happens at once. It comes in a storm. So I was doing my APAC stream. None of the riders were pedaling, and I had a few seconds of just these riders floating along the road, which was really weird. I couldn't see any power ups. I thought that was just my screen because I couldn't see any chat either. And then, kind of looking at the chat later, turns out there were actually no power ups at all in that race. So that was something. And you were saying there were some issues with the C's and the D's as well, and the number of laps.
Yeah, I must admit, I tuned into your stream and I saw the little section where they weren't pedaling. So very, very strange there. But yeah, I think most of the problems I saw in looking at the Facebook discussions this morning as well with the C and D categories, where I think some races were showing 3 laps but had to do 4 or 5, but I think if I look back at the Facebook page and the WTRL Facebook page earlier this week, riders were already flagging the fact that the distance didn't match the laps
You're
on the
right.
C and D categories. And then this morning, I noticed that WTR had put out a post to say that basically remove yourself from the pen and then add yourself to a new race. So they clearly spotted the problem, but I'm surprised it wasn't pulled up earlier, given the fact that, as always on these things, that the community had identified some potential issues, 4 or 5 days ago, I guess. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out with some of those riders and races and how they're going to weigh up the points, I guess, with the C and D. Because if I look at the results this morning, there's still a lot that's not showing, I guess.
Yeah, I guess at time of recording, there's a note up on the WTRL results page saying there was basically a catastrophic problem. I think that was the word they used, catastrophic, with the C and D registration. And just judging from the comments, I think some of those poor riders went on and rode a fourth and a fifth lap just because their race wasn't showing that they were finished. So
Yeah,
I
I
can only
mean,
imagine the feeling.
when you've spent, I guess, a week mentally preparing yourself for what's to come, and then you get those glitches, it is frustrating. I mean, we've all had, Zwift technical issues. It's part of it. It's like having a
Yeah.
puncher outside, I guess. But we know how frustrating it is. You build yourself up all week, and then something like that happens. It happens. It's technology, I guess. But we got to get on with it and learn and hope they reduce as the platform improves as we move forward, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. Hopefully next week we don't see any of the same things for Paris.
Yeah, well, I think for Paris, we won't have to mentally prepare as much. I think it's not as intimidating as Libby Hill and 23rd Street, I guess, and Governor Street.
Definitely not. No way. So speaking of Libby Hill, I thought that was another interesting thing, just watching the battles play out. And I I saw a few moves go earlier, saw a few people try on those first slopes to try and get a gap, and I think 100% of the time it was really that last hairpin, that tight right-hand corner where people really made the move. Were opening up big gaps, 6, 7 second gaps around that corner. What did you see in your
Yeah.
races?
Yeah, exactly the same. I think it's interesting because that final turn, it actually flattens off a bit, doesn't it? So I think it kicks up before you get to that right bend. So you get people putting in that little surge, And then because it just does flatten off after that bend, the gap opens up. I mean, for me, I'm not sure what it was like in your race, but it was all about Libby Hill lap one and trying to get with that front group. You know, I'd watched some of the races earlier in the day, and essentially the minute you got 10 or more riders in that front group, that was it. You know, so you got to be in that front group if you wanted to get any points.
Yeah.
And it panned out exactly the same in our race. You know, it's I think a few more managed to get on as we got over the top of 23rd Street and just the the early part of Governor Street, I think, which took our group up to about 15 riders. But then that was it. You know, that was it for the whole race, and that group of 15 then mopped up all the points for first across the line and so on. I guess the only thing that surprised me was the fact that the fastest through segments on 23rd Street was still changing hands even on lap 4 and 5. You know, I saw
Mm.
in my race, I think I was sitting about fourth from lap one, fourth fastest time. I'd got fourth fastest on Libby Hill as well. And I thought, you know what? That's fine. I'll just focus on
Give it
staying
the
with
race.
this
Yep.
group now. And then, you know, as it is on that last lap, I got knocked down to, I think, ninth fastest through on that last. So it amazed me. I certainly didn't have it in my legs to get a fastest through segment on that final lap. So there was some guys racing more efficiently than me, maybe, but I'm not sure how it panned out. Did you double up this time? Because I know normally you double up each week.
I normally do. I got on the bike this morning. I put in a big dig up Libby Hill. I think I got the seventh fastest time, and I knew I was in trouble. I didn't feel good at all. 23rd Street, I was popped. Tried to sit in with the second group up Libby on the second lap, and I just had nothing. It was just one of those terrible days on the bike. Absolutely nothing in the legs. So had to text the guys and say I can't do the double up this week. I barely even made it around. I think I finished 23 minutes behind. On cobbled climbs for EMEA this morning because I just went on to FanView and watched the other guys race and just kind of limped home this morning. So no double up for me, but I did kind of sit in and watch the Americas race, and the same thing happened actually. And a few of the guys who maybe got dropped and didn't have that intensity of racing for first across the line points up Libby Hill every time and 23rd Street. They seem to sort of save some legs through lap 2, 3, 4, and then at the end think, oh, you know what? Maybe I can just get a few more points here. And they all went for one big last dig up 23rd Street. And we did see some last minute changes on those faster segment times, which is very unusual in this league for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me the other thing on 23rd Street is I know in my recon ride I said that maybe the same person who gets the Libby might be able to hold on and get 23rd Street. So on lap 4, I tried exactly that technique, and it failed miserably. So I hit the bottom of 23rd Street going quite well, and then all of a sudden, just 10 riders flooded past me at such pace. I had to try and find an extra kick. So just ignore that part of the video. That does not work on cobble climbs, that's for sure. But yeah, ultimate respect to all the guys who double up. I know there's a few that do it. There's David Squirrel does it in our league,
Yeah,
the B1.
yeah,
He does. I can't remember which America's league he races the morning before, and I always expect him to be suffering by the time it gets to our Tuesday evening. But somehow he still beats me every week. So
yeah.
I'm toying with the idea, but the way the legs feel this morning, I'm not sure I could have done it on cobble climbs. That's for sure.
No, this was a tough one. I did it on New York, and that wasn't too bad because I didn't contest the KOM anyway in the first race. I knew I was gone. I was there for sprint points and then just kind of rolled up the top of the hill. So that was just kind of 6 sprints in the morning, spaced out over a few hours. It wasn't too bad. Yeah, the double up's good fun. It's hard to resist the racing league. It's just the formats are different. The competition's so good. You get to know the guys you're racing, and yeah, it's very tempting.
Yeah. So I'm interested to know then, how did the Governor Street climb pan out in the races? Because you saw more races than I did. How did
Mm.
that pan out in the majority of races? Was it a recovery climb, or with the teams putting pressure on there?
Yep, pretty consistently a recovery climb. I saw a couple of riders dropped off the back, but not major attrition. It was more, I think, just some tired legs and no big movements off the front up Governor Street. Very different from I did a recon race around there, and I think anyone who's raced the UCI World Circuit or raced cobble climbs where you didn't have the prime points on Libyan 23rd, it's all three climbs are just on the gas and just trying to pop riders as much as possible. Whereas I think, as you mentioned this week, people looking ahead to the next lap of primes, thinking there's still time for people to catch up on the flat roads leading up to it, and just Governor Street really was just eased off. And the races I was commentating on and watching, one of the most conservative climbs I think I've ever seen on Zwift. I'm seeing solo riders make up 10-second gaps, which I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever seen before in racing.
Yeah, so I actually watched in the I think there was, Spears, I think it was. I
Yeah,
think
Richard
in,
Spears.
Richard Spears. Every lap I seen him chasing up Governor Street, but every lap he got back on.
Yeah, yeah, it was
So,
very
yeah,
unusual.
yeah, the same in ours. So, again, the power ups. I guess we've got to talk about the power ups as well. For me, I was I said it again in the recon ride that it was all about the feather, and I think actually I thought they were all pretty balanced, but I
Yeah.
definitely would have liked more feathers. I'm not sure what you thought on that one, but
Yeah, well, there's not too much. I mean, I guess for me, the truck and the aero actually came in handy more as defensive power-ups. I think just holding
mm,
on and trying to recover a little bit. Not much you can do with them as offensive weapons up the climbs, obviously, when the speed slows down and you lose the draft effect. I mean, maybe handy for that final sprint, but the races I watched, there wasn't a bunch sprint. Everyone was so shattered and spread out over the road after those 5 laps that there was just no maybe one or two riders contesting to the line, and maybe the aero helps there. But for the most part, you're right. It was all about the feather, and we didn't really see a dominant power up like we have in some previous weeks.
no, no, absolutely, and yeah, I think grateful that we didn't have that steamroller, but we also know the steamroller, I guess, is not as effective on cobbles as it is on the dirt roads. But yeah, that aero, the only section I think I had it once, and I tried to use it on that section, that flat section before you run into that 23rd Street, but I think I did that on the lap when I got flooded. So yeah, not very effective. But in a way, I think that's good. The fact that the power ups are not having a massive influence on the outcome of the race necessarily for me is a good thing. I think it's fun and it's a nice gamification, particularly as we saw on Beach Island, where the steamroller changed the game for everyone. I think in
Absolutely.
that particular week. But I think if it did that every week, I perhaps wouldn't be too comfortable with it. But I just think we've got a really nice balance this season of courses, but also the distribution of power ups.
Yeah, it's
There's
clever.
a couple of power ups I would have liked to have seen added. We spoke about the ghost power up at some stage, but I think there's been a really intelligent selection across the board this time.
Yeah, I can remember last season we had a lot of fun with the ghost up the volcano climb. It was one of those ones where it's decided right at the top, and the ghost doesn't last very long. But you don't need very long. You've only got a 10
Yeah.
second sprint up that pinch, and so I think yeah, Anna Zwift racer on Instagram and YouTube. She did a great little video on the use of the ghost on volcano climb. So it has its place. It would be fun to see it. I think in this format with the points races and so many primes, you've got a lot more opportunities to use it to damaging effect, I suppose, in a normal race where it's really just about the finish.
Yeah, I did expect to see it on the Paris circuit, but I think next week is what we got. We got Aero. I think we have got the steamroller
It's back, yeah.
and the draft. I think as well. So yeah, the steamroller's back, but as I said, I'm not sure how effective it's going to be on the cobbles. It's certainly going to have an effect, but I don't think it's as big a difference as it is on dirt. But I guess with that long cobbled section up the Champs Elysees there, um, I think it's what 2-3% average all the way up.
Yeah, yeah.
It could still play havoc. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting battle, isn't it? Between the, I mean, I think people will be playing power ups because you've got the lap banner right before the sprint section, and there's another banner obviously straight up the road. So I can see just power ups flying left, right, and center. Battle of the arrows versus the steamrollers versus the draft, and uh, no burritos, which is good. It drove me nuts on New York. A couple of laps going for faster segment time, and just as I ramped up and hit the beacon, someone popped a burrito, and I'd lose my speed and my momentum. So none of that to contend with this week around Paris. Just that fairly straightforward, slightly uphill sprint, like you mentioned. 6 intermediate sprints, I think, this week. So
Yep.
another
Yeah.
long one. Really going to test the legs and that ability to kind of hit effort after effort after effort. Definitely a much better course for me. Libby Hill is just a little bit too long for me, and it just sets me off for the rest of the lap, and I'm trouble. But I'm definitely looking forward to getting onto some slightly flatter roads, a little bit of a rise up uh, towards the Champs Elysees, the Arc de Triomphe, but definitely nothing like we saw this week.
Yeah, I know we've sort of varied off the cobble climbs a little bit there, but I think you're right. And the thing with next week, as we saw, it was last season. I can't remember what stage it was, but we raced the Fan Flats, didn't we? And that which was
Yeah,
seen as a sprint stage, but it was actually the field was all over the place. after that sprint with some riders pushing on. So these sprint stages are not always big bunch finishes. It's if you're not there or thereabouts, even if you're not contesting, you have to be there or thereabouts. Otherwise, particularly with these fastest throughs and first across the line now being the top tens, that if you're not in that top 10 in that front group, you're not picking up any points.
No, that's
You
it.
know,
Yeah,
and
we
and
did. Yeah, it was Libby Hill after party last season, and I think what we all learnt there is
correct.
you can't go for all of the sprint primes when they're coming around every 5 kilometers or so. I know I tried. I think I went for lap 1, 3, and 4 or something like that. There was no way I could back up for lap 5 or even lap 2. And I think it might be the same here. A little bit of a longer lap around Paris, but yeah, good luck to anyone who thinks that they can contest 6 all out sprint primes around that course next week. It's going to be really taxing.
Yeah, yeah. I think, but yeah, but just bringing it back to the cobble climbs though this week, I'm not sure how it played out in your race and the ones you viewed, but in our race, I said there was 12 riders, thereabouts 12 riders in that front group. And 5 of them were from dirt, and I think 3 from were from DZR, and there was only
Yep.
me from my squad, and so. The points that Dirt picked up on that day, so whether well, clearly it must have been a tactical decision to get those 5 riders up there, as they did. But that's such a phenomenal move. But the minute that happens, that's it. It's kind of it's right over, I guess, in terms of the points classification for that, because it doesn't matter where those 5 sit in that front 12, they're picking up the most points, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was one thing we got right in the race recons and our messenger group chats and things like that. Was it was always going to be this elite front group, and if you can get into that
Mm.
top 10, you just get to farm points, climb after climb after climb, and we sort of saw it in the APAC race. And Dirt again had 4 riders in the front group, and AHJR only had 2. You could see AHJR were doing better. They were winning the faster segment times. They were winning the primes, and I actually over the line in my head doing my math. I actually gave the win to AHDR. I thought they'd done enough, but just that weight of numbers from the dirt riders in the first 2 laps before they started losing riders, it was just too much for the AHDR guys to peg back. So yeah, I guess that's the big difference with ZRL, isn't it? It is a team game, and you need everyone contributing.
Yeah, and I think that's a great change they made from season one, is making it a real team sport, and it shows the fact that you've got to have all the players in that team contributing in whatever way it is. But I guess we're going to have different riders. In my team, we have the same 6 riders every week.
Yep.
But I have to say, in that dirt team in our particular division, I don't think I've seen the same. Or I might have seen the same rider twice, but it seems to be different names every week, which makes it difficult when you're trying to follow a particular wheel. But we
Absolutely.
we have the same 6 riders, and we've got a couple of great climbers in there. There's 2 others who are considered punchers. I wouldn't say I'm a sprinter. I can compete, but I don't particularly win them. But I can be there sprint after sprint.
Yep.
But it just, I think it's a fantastic setup with this point system now, and it should suit a wide, varied group of riders throughout the whole season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you look at what's coming up. Obviously, Sprinters Paradise, Champs Elysees, iconic next week. Then we've got, I think it's Mountain 8 or
Well,
Magnificent 8
Magnificent
TTT.
Eight for the
Yep.
team time
So
trial, right?
yeah, it's got that technical climb. I suppose going up the reverse KOM. A little bit of a bump there, but I think experienced time trial squads aren't going to have a problem with that. And then Surrey
I have
Hills.
to confess, I've not recon that yet. The Surrey Hills I recon last weekend, I think it was, and yeah, that's also going to be another big test for a lot of riders, I guess, and another war of attrition like the Cobble climbs.
Absolutely. I mean that course just pops you straight onto Fox Hill, and so it's going to be you're going to find out very early in that race exactly where you stand and what you're competing for. Are you going for those first across the line points, or are you just kind of battling against your group to be there at the finish and pick up the most points that you can?
Yeah, yeah, I just think that's another one. There is that many climb points on that course. You've just got to make sure you're in that top 10, whichever way you do it. Even if you're 10th, make sure you're in that first group.
Yep.
And I think that'll be my tactic, is just try and hold on to that front group. and just pick up some points rather than trying to blast one particular climb. I think that'll be my approach. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But the Magnificent Eight, I've actually never ridden it, so I need to find an event this week to try and get that recon done and learn a bit more about the course, admittedly. So might need your help on that one.
Yeah, well, I guess they're looking ahead to the rest of Zwift Racing League season 3. We've got 3 weeks to go. Some interesting tips there, I hope, for you, all of you guys. Top 2 tips, definitely. Number 1, subscribe to Zwiftaholics. We'll be covering the points races live and giving you some great insight from the APAC region into the rest of the races. Number 2, obviously subscribe to Sai and his channel and get all of the details on these courses through the race recons. So what can we expect from you for the rest of the season, Sai?
Well, obviously we've only got 3 weeks left, so we've got the regular 3 recon rides that we need to finish. I've actually got another guest. Well, hopefully I'm going to get you on a guest as a sprint expert at some point, Adam. But I've got Paul Fitzpatrick coming on to one of the time trialing videos in the next couple of weeks,
Nice
and
one.
he's the Zwift DS. I've utilized his spreadsheets and his calculations on Zwift time trialing for some time now, so I'm really grateful to him come on because he's much better mathematician than I am at working these things out. And then yeah, hopefully, so I mean, summer's coming in the UK, so I do want to get outside in the real world and do some real world time trialing.
Yep,
But I want to get out and ride some of the Zwift courses in real life as well. So there's a bit of that to come over the next couple of months. So yeah, as you say, as I do, follow Zwiftaholics and come over and give me a follow at Cy Bradley.
absolutely. So, well, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you've got something out of that. Hope you enjoyed your Zwift Racing League as much as you could around the cobbled climbs this week. And Sai and I will be seeing you on YouTube very soon.